UXPilot is a popular AI design tool for UI UX. But how does it work? Is it actually free? Can I use it with Figma? Will it actually help my design work, or is it just another dumb AI tool that will just waste our very short time? Hello, MJ here. I'm a senior UI UX designer that is here today to give you my honest review about UXPilot. While answering all those questions, and this is not a sponsored video, I'm doing this because I genuinely wanted to try this tool out and just see it in action. And if you know nothing about UXPilot, UXPilot is actually an AI tool that lets you create wireframes, high-fidelity mockups, and predictive heat maps from mobile and desktop platforms. It says here that it can also do design reviews, screen flows, and image to design. 1 million plus high-fidelity designs had been generated with this tool. It has saved 15 hours on average per project and quadruple teams' productivity. Very interesting claim, but let's see for ourselves and generate our first screen. So here we can choose between wireframe or high fidelity. Let's try hi-fi. Then the model is actually the UI library it will use for the design. So I'll just choose the latest. Then let's try doing a mobile app. And we can add our prompt here to create a screen. Let's say we're working on an app where users can order cake pops for birthdays or special occasions. And I'm going to use the same prompt formula I use for Figma Make. So let's try prompting. Design an app for a cake pop shop with a clean, delightful, and pastry-inspired style. The style should be warm and welcoming with soft textures like pastel backgrounds, subtle gradients, and light patterns inspired by frosting or sprinkles. Use a sweet and appetizing color palette with soft pinks, creams, mint greens, and warm browns. Typography should be playful but clear. The visual style should be charming, modern, and easy to navigate. Make the voice and tone friendly and joyful but refined because we don't want this to be for kids. And actually, before generating this, let's add a flow. And this is like a list of screens to generate based on the prompt. So it's just not one screen, but a full flow of screens that it generates for us, right? If you click here, it can auto-generate them. And I feel this might be great to generate screen ideas or to catch screens that you may be forgotten in your flow. But if you're past the ideation phase, it's better for you to just manually add the screen information here, like the text, the layout, the content, special styles you need, maybe the colors if you already have a color palette for the specific pages. For this example, I really want to try the auto-generate flow. I have 510 credits right now. And generating these 5 screens will cost 30. So I think you can start getting the idea of how expensive this could be in the long run, because we know AI is not a one and done, right? You need to iterate, and iterations all have a cost. Actually, if you learned anything in this video, hit that like button and subscribe if you're interested in using AI tools ethically, responsibly, and integrate them in your design workflow the right way. Okay, something else I wanted to try is the deep design feature, because it supposedly give you richer layouts, but it seems like it's double the credits, so we'll be actually using 60 credits for this. But let's just try it out. After a few minutes, this is the autoflow that created for us. We have a homepage, product listings, product details, shopping cart, and checkout. Very basic but straightforward. It did use the pink, green, and brown pastel colors that I asked for. Overall, it does have a pastry look and feel here, and it says, "Good morning, Sarah. Ready for some sweet treats today?" I guess we can say the voice and tone is also friendly, so that's a really good start. But I did ask for typography to be playful, and this to me looks very standard and bland, so maybe it doesn't really play a lot with typography. For the colors, it did play around with the gradients as I asked it to, which I feel it's a really good fit for pastries. But here you can see the contrast is totally off. I can barely read this, so it's not really consistently giving me readability and accessibility, I would say. Then the next section is a search bar. Okay, this may need usability testing, but I'm thinking on the recognition rather than recall usability guideline. And if we follow that, I would say maybe the feature treats or the order again should show first. Also, bigger images, because honestly, images is what actually sells. Maybe also show 2 or 3 images here with an horizontal scroll. So there's more chances to show something Sarah would like. And we can keep this plus button here. We have more readability issues here. Sweet deals, but not so sweet design. Oh wait, why most popular has a different layout than feature treats? I think it should have the same layout. And then we have a heart also. A heart action instead of an add to cart action. So it does give you layout inconsistency as well, but I believe that can be fixed with an iteration. Then recent orders has absolutely no business being here in the homepage. Okay, this is not supposed to be a design review, but I think you agree with me that until now, the user experience doesn't seem ideal. And my problem with this is that this tool is called UX Pilot, not UI Pilot. And I know I say this often, but we can clearly see something here. Actually, 2 things. The first one is that AI cannot do the work of a UX designer perfectly yet, even if it's trying to replicate common design patterns. And second, even with UX Pilot, you still need a UX designer to detect the issues, fix them, and release the screens the right way. But this is not a total Halloween horror because this doesn't mean that UX Pilot is not useful. Of course, after all of this, we still need a lot of iterations and fixes, also user testing. But let's look at everything we already have with one prompt. We do have a potential look and feel, color palette inspiration for sections and UI elements. We also have human readable microcopy instead of just a lorem ipsum. We have icons, we have deliciously looking images, and we have a screen flow draft. So until now, I would say it looks great for fast-paced ideation and brainstorming. Now, there are a lot of issues in these screens, and UX Pilot lets you fix them in certain ways because you cannot really get there and edit manually like in Figma. So to make changes, for example, if I click here on edit, we can make global edits, which means editing this entire screen. We can also edit a specific section or change the text, and you can do this with prompts where you can attach references as well. And of course, it uses credits. Any change or UI generation that uses AI charges you credits. So let's try this. Let's try reorder the section so feature treats show right after greeting section. Okay, after a few minutes, it did reorder the sections, but now this special button is kind of clipped, which means we may need to review the entire screen again to catch these things when you make global edits. Let's try something else actually. Let's change the look and feel of this screen to have darker colors similar to a red velvet cake. I love red velvet, so let's try that. Okay, it worked. The color palette is not bad actually, but it's still struggling with contrast on the background versus the cards and the unreadable text again. But I think it kind of did a good job on the color palette selection because this palette I would definitely use as inspiration. One super useful thing that was recently added to UX Pilot is their version control. So if we made changes, like now we made 2 changes, right? We can quickly go back to the previous version just by clicking them And we have a nice preview here so we can pick and choose the one we want. So I think that's an awesome feature. Let's actually check interactions now. And this is also a recent change they added where you can prompt to add interactions to the screens. And that includes modals or overlays. So let's check it out. Let's try when user clicks the Add New Payment button, open a modal that allows users to add a credit card. Okay, let's preview this, and yes, we do have the overlay with the card number, the name, the expiry date, the CVV number, and it even added this checkbox to save the card, which is a very common pattern to use. So I think they did a great job for this one. Now these screens are not responsive though, but we can make them responsive with a prompt. So let's try and say, make these screens responsive. Okay, well, it's not perfect, but I think it tried its best. It did stretch out the progress bar on the top. And oh no, this button is massive. Well, at least they will not miss it now. Kidding, this doesn't even look like a button anymore. They will totally miss this. And those are small things that you really need to fix with a prompt, and that uses credits because again, you cannot pixel push this to fix it. And in case you haven't noticed, UX Pilot made these screens already interactable for a prototype, supposedly. So let's check that out and see how well it did. Okay, so you can type on text boxes, which is great because we didn't need to do anything else like we need to do in Figma. But none of these buttons seem to have hover states though. I have other projects with this and I've seen hover states created by UX Pilot, but in this case, not everything has it. This menu is not clickable either. Now, I wonder if anything is clickable. No, not clickable. Oh, but the trash can here does have a hover state. So we can say some buttons may have hover states and some don't. I wonder how is this a prototype now, because we did ask him to create a flow of screens, but they are not connected. Oh, but at least it seems we have a working back button, which I think probably is just sending you back to the previous screens, regardless of which one was it. Now, something that really surprised me is their code export, because you can export these screens as HTML, and the way you do this is manual and you need to do screen by screen. But check this out. If I go here and copy the code into a text document with an HTML extension, here it is. It's almost identical. Not quite responsive though, but we do have the gradients, the shapes, we have the cards, the icons, everything seems to be in place, which I think is a really great feature to have for either handoffs or to use it yourself if you're doing code as well. It is using Tailwind for this, and just at a quick glance, the HTML does seem decently structured because I've seen other AI tools generate code and it's a massive chain of divs inside divs inside divs, and it's awful. But this one here, this HTML looks very well structured, I would say. Now, a lot of people ask for UX Pilot because you can use it with Figma with a plugin. But before leaving this screen, I want to show you two more things that UX Pilot can do for you. That is design review and predictive heat maps. So if I go back to the homepage and click review, we can see both here. Now for both, you need to upload an image. So I had to go back and download my CakePop site homepage, and I just dropped it here. Of course, this will use credits as well, but let's check the design review first. Then it's asking me to outline the scope and objectives of the review. So let's just say something simple. Detect usability issues based on usability heuristics. After a few minutes, we got this. So for navigation and information architecture, the tab bar icon lacks labels. Add clear text labels to improve discoverability and user understanding. The tab bar? I am guessing that's the header, but for a mobile app, adding text would be too much. I wonder if it differentiates between app and desktop best practices or not. Okay, let's just check the next one, which is search bar design could better indicate interactivity by adding a border or shadow. It does have a border, but I guess it could be better, yeah. Then for visual design, the color contrast for the special offer and order now button is low. Increase the contrast for readability. I feel it just gave me a perfect design. And now that it's in my hands, he's like, hey, your design has this issue and this issue and this issue, and it's not usable. If it knows this, couldn't it just giving us with the fixes already in the first place? Yeah, anyway, I have to say some of these suggestions make sense, but some of the other suggestions may probably not make sense in certain situations. For example, it says here, add hover states for the buttons, and this is just an image. It cannot know if I have interactions or hover states. So I would take all of these with a grain of salt. You can also do this design review inside Figma, but you'll get very similar results. Okay, let's try the predictive heat map with this screen. And after a few minutes, we had this, but I think predictive maps are not a new thing. There's already several tools you can use, and this one seems kind of accurate, yes, but it's just based on the visual weight of the elements. So I guess it's okay. It's fine. Now, I know a lot of us are using Figma, so let's try to use Figma plugin. And for that to work, we have to mark the screens as save design. Okay, and then if we go back to Figma, we open the plugin and we can see retrieve in Figma. So let's get all the screens, and we'll have to wait for a bit. Okay, this background is it's not the right gradient pattern actually. The original pattern is like wavy, and this is just a straight one. So that was not great. We're also missing the sprinkles. I would guess that's something that is not easy to replicate in Figma unless you have a background image with a pattern, right? And then I can see some of these elements are also out of position. That can be fixed now because now we're in Figma and we can pixel push. But the layers though, wow, these layers are so messy. Oh my, I have a developer background, and this mess reminds me of the applications where you could just drag and drop UI elements and the front end code was generated for you, which as developers, we never used it because it was just too messy. It was difficult to modify and it took a lot of resources to load all the containers. I mean, if this is unworkable and we have no components and we don't even have auto layouts anywhere, and in that case, we will need to practically do everything all over again just to make this work. So is it worth all that hassle? That's a question. But before jumping into conclusions, let's quickly check the current prices. We have 3 plans for UX Pilot. The free plan, I feel it's more like a trial because you only get 90 credits one time. They do not refresh monthly, it's just one time. And it says here 15 screens, but I used 60 credits with the advanced feature. And this is just to create the 5 screens. And that's not even counting the iterations. Also, once you run out of credits, you cannot do anything else unless you purchase more credits. So I feel 90 credits is not enough to fully test this tool. Then we have the standard plan with 420 credits. That's the one I was using. And apart from the basic features, we also have export to Figma, export code. You can create more design files and generate up to 5 screens with the autoflow feature. For everything I showed you, I used about 90 credits, but this is only one project and we didn't do all the iterations that needed to be done to make it usable. Estimating how many credits you need is very hard because AI is always unpredictable, but if I need to throw a number, I would say maybe you will need between 200 and 300 credits for a low complexity project, which means you may probably be able to make just 1 or 2 projects a month for $12. Now, if you seriously want to use this tool for your projects, you will definitely need the Pro plan. Not only because you can potentially use your Figma components, but also because you will definitely need this section Edit. This option over here, which lets you modify only one section instead of the entire screen, and you can only use this with a Pro plan. And believe me, you will need it, because otherwise for every global iteration you make, it may change things that you already fixed and you'll have to refix them again, and I'm sure you don't want that. One last thing, it doesn't really say here, but if you want to upload a reference image for changes like maybe using the layout of an image or using the color palette of the image, you also need a Pro plan for that. You cannot use the standard or the free plan. You need the Pro plan. Now that we have the pricing, let's check the pros and cons. First of all, for the pros, we have fast screen flow and flow suggestions. We have fast ideation for UI screens, for UI sections, for UI elements, icons, microcopy, and images, which is great. It's also really good at generating different look and feels very quickly. It's good at generating common layout patterns, which is really great to get started. You can move the UI to Figma, but you may probably need to recreate everything without layouts and components. But at least you do have the basic colors, images, and microcopy done for you. It has predictive heat maps for a quick glance at the visual weight of your designs, which is always good to have. And you can export the HTML code, and I would say it's pretty accurate. Now, one of the cons is definitely the credits and their price, because you can burn them very fast. You cannot pixel push. Every change needs a prompt, and every prompt needs credits. And because you cannot pixel push, you are tied to use the generic cookie cutter design system. So pretty much every single project you make will be generic or will require a lot of complex prompts to fix it, and therefore a lot of credits. Also, there's a lot of manual fixing you need to do when exporting to Figma. We saw that very messy layer system and no auto layouts. So we do need to fix all of that manually if you're importing into Figma. So should you use UX Pilot? The obvious answer is it depends. UX Pilot is good if you're brainstorming, ideating for screen layouts, images, color palettes maybe, microcopy, and maybe screen flows. It also may be a good tool if you're a Figma beginner and you want a really quick start for your designs. It can also be great to create quick proof of concepts that you would test with users. It can be used as a quick and messy starting point for your design, but UX Pilot is not good if you want full control over your designs, because you cannot pixel push. Every single change needs a prompt, and we all know that prompts are not perfect, and they do not always give you exactly what you want. It may not be for you if you're a perfectionist, because every single change is costly and you may probably need to do a lot of changes. And if you're looking to make unique designs, something that is outside of the common patterns, this tool may not be for you. Though it may give you good content and microcopy ideas, but because it's using its own internal design system, I do not believe it can give you something very different and creative. Honestly, this entire review reminded me a lot of Figma Make, so I think it will be worth it to make that comparison. Because if Figma Make can do all of this, do you really need to try UX Pilot? That's a question I really want to answer, and if you're thinking the same thing, check this video next.